Hey now, PD Grizz here. Looking at a couple of the newest knives I just got in this week. So, let's get started. First, we've got an Imperial Electrician utility knife, also known as the TL29 style knife. When I first became an electrician, I worked for a really old school master electrician as an apprentice, and he insisted on me using one of these. And to be honest, it's not that great. I think it worked better with the older materials, the contemporary materials from... And there's the train. Thank you, train. So, as the train goes by, yeah, so I picked this up for $3. I figured a little nostalgia trip for me. I wanted one. This isn't like an old one or anything. I haven't even really looked up any information about it yet, but it's in fantastic shape. It's got these brown pinned-on covers. It's got the cheap kind of bolsters that are just like a clipped-on layer. You can see the little clip in there that bends over and holds them on. Nothing special about it. This is a bare-bones knife meant for doing work, There is barely a second thought given to anything about aesthetics when it comes to a knife like this. So the first blade is what makes it actually special. We've got the Electricians Blade in here. So you've got this curved area. And I don't think this was used very much, but it's not particularly sharp. And generally, electricians' knives aren't super sharp. They don't really need to be for cutting like rubber insulation and stuff like that. And if anything, a too sharp knife tends to cut a little too far and cut into the actually insulation under the sheathing. So that's why a lot, like I was saying about my master electrician when I started, he didn't want me using a utility knife for exactly that reason, but everybody uses utility knives. You get a feel for it, and then it's much easier, and you just toss the blade out and put a new one in when it gets dull. It's just way better. It's got the flathead screwdriver tip, which comes to a very fine point. I don't think the old ones were quite as thin as this. I mean, that is a very delicate screwdriver. That tip would snap super easily. And I remember the one that he gave me, which I actually gave to my first apprentice. It's kind of a tradition, you give the new kid your old tools, but it definitely had a thicker tip than that. This thing wouldn't survive very long, but I don't think anybody uses it for that. And you notice the tip is actually dull right here where the screwdriver is. The blade ends right about where my thumbnail is right now, so about a 1/4 inch from the tip is where the blade is actually sharpened at. This notch here is I've seen videos where guys say, oh, that's for pushing the insulation off the wire. No, it's just there so you can reach the nail nick on the other blade. Other than that, it serves no function as far as an electrician's knife. You wouldn't push this way, and have the blade up with your thumb. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just there because you'll see when I close it, it exactly fits where the nail nick is. Has a liner lock. I guess it's a brass liner lock, says press here on it, like them old school humped liner locks. Very cool. Has a hard 90-degree stop, so the tang is actually flat. A lot of them will kind of hover there, but that's what some people call the lazy 90-degree stop. But that's just a function of it losing leverage when it gets in this position. But this is actually designed to stop there so that you're forced to come around and close it without your fingers in the way. And as you see, that notch pretty much lines up with the nail nick. It's a little off, but it allows you to get your finger in there a lot easier. And then we've got the main spear blade, which does not have a lock on it. That lock was mainly there because you may be using that as a screwdriver. And that's, when you're pushing straight on a blade, that's the most chances of it closing up on you by accident. So we've got Imperial, Providence, Rhode Island. Made in the USA. Rhode Island. I was just thinking about another Imperial knife that I have that's made in Ireland. I really like this spear blade, though. It's great shape, nice, thick, hardy blade. Good blade. Not particularly sharp. I don't know if he's used much or just sat around or wasn't very sharp in the factory. It looks to be a factory edge, but it's just not very sharp. But like I said, electricians' knives seldom need to be very sharp. So, my next two. Let me see what I got here. Which one do I want to look at first? All right. First, we have a late 60s standard. This one dates from somewhere between 1969 and 1971, possibly 72 at the absolute latest. And you'll see as it has the key ring, the bail went out around 1968. Still has the 5-turn corkscrew, which lasted till about 1974, something like that. I might be off with that one. It's been a while since I read up on it. It's impossible keeping all these things in your head. If you can remember all this stuff, you really need to get out in the sun once in a while. But 5-turn corkscrew, decorative fluting, lovely aluminum liners. The reamer. No hole in the reamer, so certainly before 1985, although that's obvious from other reasons. Then we've got the cap lifter, and it's got the wire stripping edge sharpened on the inside. Outstanding. And this isn't particularly sharp, but it's plenty sharp to rip the rubber sheathing or insulation off of electrical cables. Then we've got the Swiss Pat can opener. So the can opener, again, this can opener, they applied for the patent in 1951, and originally they said U.S. patent pending or patent pending, depending on where they were sold at. And then around 1953, when the patent was approved, they started putting the Swiss cross with the PAT on it for patented. Lovely can opener, has the 2D Phillips small flathead thing going on. Outstanding. Then we've got the clip blade. Oh, poor little clip blade. And again, very common. Probably why they switched away from the clip blades is they just have such a fine point that they're just asking to get broken. And a lot of people, will assume that some prying was involved, but really, generally, in my experience, what has happened is I drop them, they land on the floor like this at a slight angle, and pop, and the blade breaks, and that's it. So I will grind that down, and you'll barely even you won't even notice anything was ever wrong with it. I'll bring this angle down just a tad bit, and then round it up so it meets that point, and it'll still tuck down below the handle, and it'll look fantastic. Then we get to our main blade. So check her out. In pretty good shape. Really not much used. Looks like it was carried a lot, but not used heavily, It's definitely been sharpened a few times. I can see the waviness from the hand sharpening. It's got some scratches. No big deal, though. Got some cracks in the handle. Nickel silver shield. I love when these nickel silver shields are patinaed like this, and they get that deep, almost gold color. Fantastic. Victorinox with the small V. Switzerland stainless. Rostfrei. Beautiful. On the back, we've got the Victoria Crossbow Officier Swiss tank stamp. That dates from 1957 to 1973. So, certainly the knife was before 1973, but given that we have the Swiss Pat on here, which ended in 1971, and we don't have a bail, we can narrow it down to this knife was certainly manufactured between 1969 and 1971, maybe 72. You do see the Swiss Pat maybe into the 72 a little bit. Remember that, it's not like when they hit a date and said, okay, we're changing over. Oh, we still have a bunch of those parts left. Throw them out. We can't have the wrong mark on the part, even though it's the same part. No, they just used them until they ran out. So they would commission the new part and start putting it into production. And the old one would fade out once the last ones were used, unless they kept some aside for warranty repairs or whatever. Then we got another standard. I actually got a pair of standards. I picked these up for a sweet deal, so I didn't mind. This is we'll get to what the date this is. This is an interesting one because this actually fits in with a video Tobias just did the other day with his Ranger. But now we've got the 4-turn corkscrew. So around, 1974, I believe, 75-ish, they switched over to that. Still has the decorative fluting. The reamer still has no hole in it because it's a reamer. We've got the cap lifter. Now the cap lifter has lost its sharpened edge. Still has a stripping notch, still has a screwdriver, still lifts caps. No half stop or anything like that, as you wouldn't expect, since it's obviously before 85. Then we've got the can opener screwdriver with no Swiss pat, so it's certainly after 1971, 1972-ish. We come back here to pen blade. Yeah, it's boring, but a little tougher, so the tips hold up a little better, but you still find these with broken tips too. In good shape. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing great about it. It is what it is. Pen blade. This one's a little gummed up. I got to clean it up a little more. Then we've got the main blade. About the same shape as the other one, really. Pretty much the same condition. Some light scratching. Nothing too heavy. It doesn't look like anybody sharpened it with a brick this time, which is a nice change of pace. Victorinox, small V, same tank stamp as the other one. Then on the back, we've got no tank stamp. So, in the years from 1973 to 1976, a lot of changes were going on. They ditched the clip blade. They changed the metal saw. They changed the metal saw. They changed the scissors. The magnifying glass and inline Phillips were introduced, and the the Champion C was introduced. So there were years that a lot of changes went down, and for some reason they had some blades that didn't have any back stamp on the tang, and that happens to date it pretty specifically to between 73 and 76. So we narrow this down, and this knife is basically just a few years older than this knife. So, and they came from the same place. They may very well have been bought by the same person a few years apart. Who knows? That has been lost to time. But anyway, the Standard, very cool. It had the, you can call it a Spartan. Same thing. Spartan has scale tools. Standard doesn't. But it's not something to get worried about. They're the same knife. I don't really consider the Standard, when they change, I don't think that lacking scale tools is enough of a change to completely change the model. The Spartan, Standard are the same thing, just like a Climber and Traveler, Huntsman, Woodsman, etc. So anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Petey Grizz out.